Hey, howdy, hi. Today I'm going to be showing how to LOD skinned characters, skin meshes, just in general inside of Houdini, and also how to maintain their blend shapes. Because Houdini is great at that and can handle a lot of the heavy lifting, meaning that you can make an LOD, reduce the polygons for your character, but then also reduce and maintain the blend shapes on that reduced mesh as well. It's a little bit tedious, but it's pretty straightforward once you get the hang of it. So let's do it. All right, to start off with, I'm going to show you the finished product and what we're actually going to be making. So this is the character. This is a character from Sam and Max, one of the NPCs. Nothing really important here, but just to show what we're working with. Under here, I have, LOD 1 and 2. LOD 2 is pretty intense in terms of its you can see the mesh differences there. So LOD 1, LOD 2, and it's pretty hardcore. Let's do a shaded wireframe. Yeah, so if, all right, so in here on the face, things get pretty smushed from the mesh reduction process. All of this is done in Houdini. All of this is prepped, finished in Houdini. The character itself is done in Maya by another artist who is amazing and does some pretty incredible stuff. So just gonna reset some settings here. But what I wanted to show with this final product, because on this head, if I was to bring this in and I just look at the, if I was to bring in the original character, it's got all these nice blend shapes that were set up by our technical animator. Very glad that I did not have to do those. And that's great, because we use that with lip sync. So, this is like a preview of all the different phonemes that are being used, and that's awesome. It's really handy, really useful. All of these phonemes are already set up. The blend shapes are there. It's all good, but there's a problem, and that is that by default, if I was to just make LODs, first of all, if I was to just use a mesh reduction, well, it wouldn't, first of all, it wouldn't be skinned. If you do a mesh reduction in the normal way, like you reference it in Houdini, do a poly reduce, and then just export it straight from there, it won't have any skinning on it, and it won't have any blend shapes. So I'm going to show you how to do that. And now, so here is inside of Houdini. Here's all the stuff going on. So I've already got the 3 NPC characters from the game. So I'll turn those off, and I'm going to re-import and walk through and talk through a few of these steps that are going on. So I like to structure my folders so that I have an in and an out folder. That to me I find really helpful. So I'm going to import the Sasha base, which is the one that we were looking at. Something that's important is to turn the compatibility mode to FBX standard. Just helps in the import of the blend shapes to begin with. And then turning on import blend deformers as blend sops. So we hit import. So we've got this. Comes in with some of the controls and stuff. Those don't really matter. Let's jump in. Now for the regular geometry here, we've got just her body, which we can do that first, which is the simpler thing to reduce. All right, so let's do this one first. I'm just going to rename it LOD 0 because Unity loves naming conventions, and if you name things correctly, it'll set up your LODs for you when you import, which is great. So if we look in here, there's some important things that we have to note. that are different in its structure. And the most important node is this one right here. That one is the deform node, the bone deform, and that's what basically copies the skinning onto the mesh, you know, after these other few like processors. So then when I want to reduce this, so let's just LOD1. So then I want to do object merge. And it's important here, I don't want to just grab this root node because that's actually going to do nothing. It's not going to help me at all. Because this has to be the last node. Or, you know, one of the last nodes. Actually, no, it has to be the last node. Yeah, it has to be the last node. So actually what I want to grab is I want to grab this node right above it. Or what you could do is drop a null down in between here and then reference that. If that's simpler and makes for a better graph for you. I'm just going to grab this node right above it. So here, now I've got this mesh and it's looking fantastic. Look at that beautiful topology. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a poly reduce. And let's bring that down to like 50. Hooray, hooray. Nothing crazy there. But then what I do need to do is I need to do a bone deform node. And let's just double check, make sure that is exactly the same. Yes, that is exactly the same. Good, good, good. Just default settings. Perfect. That's it. Like that's all there is to making sure your skin weights copy over. Pretty dang simple. But it is very important because if you don't have this bone deform node at the end, nothing, there's going to be no skin weights. Nothing at all. Nothing. But if now I go and export this and let's say I want to do, let's call this Sasha test. And I'll reference, it's this one, yep. It's important, if your bones are all hidden in this hierarchy, make sure that you have export invisible objects as visible full nodes. And then also it's a good idea to just turn on force blend shape export, force skin deform export. That is very, very important. So we hit export, and then from my out folder, let's grab this, drag this into the Sasha folder. We'll leave our completed one there. So here's our new Sasha. I'll first just reassign the material. And one thing that does happen with skinned meshes, if you have a namespace in Maya that you're working with, something that's important to note is Houdini does not support colons. So you'll notice on the actual one, it's SA colon Sasha head LOD 0. On this one, it's SA underscore, and that's a problem. So I wrote a little script called replace in name, SA underscore to SA bam, and this will just recursively search down everything underneath this object and replace it. So now I can remove that because that's fine. Doesn't matter at all. Actually, no, I'll just leave it on there because we'll have to replace it for some other stuff later. But as you can see, it's got our LODs set up correctly. Hooray, hooray. So when we, so you can already see, here we've got our reduced and regular one, which is great. And you can see it's still a skin mesh, which is precisely what we want. Now if I, whoops, wrong one. So if I now assign the animator component to this for that character, I can now, do this, and here, you can see everything is working fine, whether LOD 0, LOD 1, all is fine. Right, so here's with LOD 1. You can see there's some like little jiggity janks in it, but that's okay, because normally you'll be like at about here when you see the LOD 1. So there's some like little inconsistencies, which if you wanted, you could go in and paint in some supports. I don't, because we don't really have time on our project to do that. But, so we can see that's working fine. But here, we still only have, our LOD 0 of the head. And so I want to be able to LOD that as well. So let's copy over this. Whoops. And now we have to do something special, because if we jump into the Sasha head, this base imported one, you can see it's got an extra node, which is the Blendshapes node, which is really, really handy, really, really cool. And it's also got all of these nulls, which have magically stored all of the blend shape information and feed it into this. You can see the base model, the rest pose, is the first input, and then all the other inputs are the blend shapes. Now, this is a little bit tricky, because I would like this to be easier and, able to like automate this a little bit better. But there's not really like a cleaner way that I could find this afternoon in working all of this out. So I am going to show the way that I found to actually get this working, because it's kind of fiddly. Kind of fiddly business. Now, okay, so let's just grab all of these nodes, copy that. Let's go into here, change this to point. Again, I want to grab right before the blend shape node. Let's grab that. So we've got her head, and it's poly reduced to about 50, which is fine. It's not pretty, but it's fine. So we've got our bone deform node there, but what I want is I need to bring in a blend shapes node in front of that. And at present, I've got 0 blend shapes, nothing going on here. But then if I copy in all of these nodes, and if I just drag these in here, and I update the channel names from inputs, oh, boom, I've got all my blend shapes again. But they're all broken. Hooray. No problem. The issue is that this model is the high res and this is the low res. So it's not able to properly figure out which is which, and it's having a hard time being able to like interpolate between the blend shape, which is high res, and the res shape, which is low res. So what we have to do then is we have to make sure that we match the geometry. So we have to reduce all of the blend shapes as well to the same level that we're reducing our res shape, which is really actually very easy. So I'm holding Control Shift and Alt, dragging out my poly reduce to create a referenced node. And I'm just gonna grab this and pull this down so it's a little bit easier to just see where all the different wires are. Now, there's a caveat here, and that is that if you see here, the topology is just slightly different in between the two, and that's important. It's very important because a blend shape has to be exactly the same, right? So even though that's using the reduced model, it still totally blows up. Thankfully, you can just drop the rest geometry, the high res rest geometry, the original, into there, And so now you can see the topology is now exactly the same between the rest and the blend shape. So then now, beep up boop, there we go. We got a blend shape. That's working. And then, you know, you just got to do a little bit of tedious work. Copying this over, interrupting all of these. Oops. And there we go. So that should be totally fine, right? No. There's another few caveats to talk about, namely naming. And so though this is like really helpful and pretty amazing, because, you know, now obviously I've got all my blend shapes and it's perfect. And, you know, if I want another one of these, I just, you know, duplicate this whole geometry, go in and tweak the percentage on this, right? Because obviously, so if I reduce this, then here, you know, still works, still fine. Because all of these poly reduces are all referenced. So hooray. Super yay for us. And we've got our bone deform in here, which has to be the last node. Now, this is great, but one thing that Houdini does, even though our names are set correctly here, when Houdini exports this, it is going to helpfully change all of these names to basically look like this. And that's what you're going to get in Unity, is you're going to get that. Even though they're set like this in Houdini, when it exports it, it's going to go and it's going to grab the name of the last node before it enters into this blend shape node. So we got to fix that. So what I did, just kind of lazy, I just copied the name over, even though there's that one on there, because lip sync is just looking for the, like, it's just looking for that particular keyword. So long as O_mouth is there, it doesn't matter if there's a 1 on it. It doesn't really care, thankfully. Whoops. And, you know, thankfully our tech animator figured all of this stuff out, figured out all the blend shape names and stuff so that I did not have to. I just have to process stuff. But I get to save them a ton of time because, you know, not only would it take a regular artist, you know, terribly, terribly long to just LOD the mesh itself, but then to also LOD all of the blend shapes and stuff. Good night. It's not happening. Which is why it hasn't happened up until now, because it'd be a massive time sink. A massive time sink. So here we go. So let's update this. There we go. So now we know for sure this is what we're gonna see in game. Then the other caveat, and this is very, very important, is when Houdini exports it, it's not gonna export this geometry node as SA_SashaHead LOD1. No, it's not gonna do that. Nope, it's gonna name it based on the blend shape node. That's what it's gonna do. So, easy. Oop. Because you just gotta name it. You gotta name it there, and then it'll export properly. So now, let's go and let's re-export that. We'll see all of our stuff is just like diddly dandy. It's brilliant. Here we go. Okay. So now, oh right. Oh, you know what I forgot to do too? So you'll notice in here, it's named the head SashaHead_blend, which is because in here, the blend node is called SashaHead_blend. So, you know, just gotta fix that as well. Because Houdini is just so helpful, it sometimes gets it wrong. Sometimes gets it wrong. It's a little too helpful. It's very eager. But I love it. I love it so much. Okay, so now let's go back into here. Go back into the Sasha and let's just update this mesh. Boom. Okay, so now we've got everything set up. Of course, also too, our LODs are nicely automatically set up for us because hooray. Let's just hit that search and replace again because we have some new meshes coming in. Just make sure everything is hunky-dory and matching the original that our artist set up. And then now to test this, let's add a lip sync components and blend shape using the head LOD 0. And here's the super duper dope thing is you can also just add the head LOD 1 as an optional other mesh, and bam, and now they're in sync, which is great. What? Why is doing? Oh. Yeah, I think it's just because it has. Hang on. Let's do this. Anyways, that totally worked when I did it earlier. But you can see, so if I grab both of these, make sure both of their E is up, right? So you can see now, obviously I would have to go and set up that Lip Sync Pro again, but looky here. I got some nice stuff going on. So you can now see like all of the blend shapes are retained. Everything works. And you know, we've got this going on, and I can open this, play around with the blend shapes while everything is playing. Yeah, it's pretty great. Yeah. So I would just have to go back and reset up the lip sync. But let's just grab this. But it works, and that's what's important. And I probably just saved 8 to 10 hours of work in about 20 minutes. Yeah, at least 8 to 10 hours, if not more. And that is a massive, massive benefit to your character pipeline, and is going to save you a lot of time and going to save you a lot of like heartache and frustration with your artists. Well, I hope that was useful. I hope that you learned something and that you can take this into your own games, into your own production, and let Houdini take off a little bit of the work for you. Thanks for watching.